Mississippi Born, Delta Raised is a podcast that focuses on the intersection of public health and social justice issues in the Mississippi Delta. Daphne Robinson, an attorney and public health professional, is your host. Welcome to the latest episode of Mississippi Born, Delta Raised. In this episode, I am excited to highlight the town of Lambert and one of its native daughters, Dr. Ashley White Jones. According to the 2010 census, Lambert had approximately 1,638 people. 70% of the population is African American, and it is evenly distributed between male and female. Like many towns and cities in the Mississippi Delta, the population has decreased. From 2000 to 2010, Lambert's population decreased by 16%. Dr. Ashley White Jones is a native of Lambert, Mississippi, where she attended the Quitman County Public Schools. She currently serves as Executive Director at Community Health Improvement Network and an instructor of kinesiology at Mississippi State University in Meridian, Mississippi. Her academic degrees include Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, a Master of Public Health, both from Jackson State University, and a Doctor of Philosophy in Health Education and Promotion from the University of Alabama. Her academic research explores racial discrimination in healthcare, race-related stressors, and culturally relevant health information for African Americans. She serves as the Chief Self-Care Support Officer and Chief Scientific Officer of Henry Health, a digital self-care and mental health services company for Black men. Most recently, she created a company called Herself 2 LLC, focused on ensuring optimal wellness by incorporating the practice of self-care and self-love for rural Black women. And she is the founder and creator of #Herself, a women's self-care brunch, an event to be held in Lambert, Mississippi on March 9th, 2019 at 10 o'clock a.m. Please join me in welcoming a fellow Mississippi Delta native, Dr. Ashley White Jones, to this episode of the podcast.
Thank you, Daphne, for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I was born and raised in the Mississippi Delta. I'm originally from Lambert, Mississippi. Lambert is a very small city, pretty much wedged between Clarksdale and Batesville. So those are normally like the markers that we use. It's in Quitman County, Mississippi, and I grew up there, spent most of my adult life there, went on to college in Jackson State and got a master's and my bachelor's there, and later went to University of Alabama and got a PhD. But I've always still been, connected to where I grew up. Most of my work is centered around the rural space in the Delta, so I'm really focused on making sure that we can create a culture of health that promotes wellness in those spaces. A lot of times, smaller areas don't get as much recognition as they deserve. Most people who grew up in like larger cities in the state, they often know about, Jackson and South Haven and Greenwood and Greenville, but they never really know about these little small towns. So one of my coworkers said, I think it may have been a week ago when she asked me where I was from, and I told her Lambert, and she was like, that must be in the Delta, because most of the time, if you've never heard of it, then it's likely going to be in the Delta. I was like, well, that is very true. That's exactly where it is. But I just want to make sure that the work that I do brings recognition to those smaller spaces. So,
well, that's wonderful. That's really the reason why I started this podcast as well, to highlight the people in the Delta and to highlight the places that are there that nobody's ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think the area has made a tremendous impact on the country and on the world. And so you've told us a little bit about Lambert, but can you tell us some of the problems that you see from a public health perspective that Lambert faces?
So I was there over the weekend, And, if you've been following the news, we've been getting a lot of rain. So, even thinking about just the public infrastructure of the cities itself. So I was a little bit sad as I kind of came home because of all this rain we've gotten over the last like 5 days, it starts to flood. And so I was driving around, headed to my grandmother's house. I like to just drive by there even though her house doesn't exist anymore. And I couldn't get on the street because the street was flooded. And so, as I'm looking about, where is all this stuff coming from? I could see as a child, I remember this ditch being here and jumping the ditch as a kid, never really concerned about it flooding or, water. But it seems as if in the last 4 years, maybe, this amount of flooding that's been consistent every time it rains for a long period of time. And so that was one of the biggest things I saw over the weekend. My parents still live there, so I go home, visit them, and just kind of drive around, and it starts to seem as if things are getting worse. So as far as economy, there aren't very many jobs. So, like, for example, my mother, for probably as long as I can remember, has always worked in Senatobia, which is in Tate County, northern Mississippi, closer to South Haven. And that drive is, over 50 miles. And she had been driving for 20 plus years, every morning getting up to go there. And most people will work at the casinos in Tunica. So people aren't really able to work at home, and their kids are in school and they're away from them. That's pretty much how we grew up. My mom worked 50 miles away. So a lot of times for like school events and things like that, she wasn't able to attend because she's so far away, and having to go to work, get me up early in the morning to braid my hair or do anything and drop me off, at my grandmother's. But that's pretty much like the biggest issues right now. We don't have a hospital anymore. Our hospital has closed. A lot of rural hospitals in the state of Mississippi are closing. I think I was reading an article last week about 31 rural hospitals in the state potentially going to close in the next coming years. So access to health care, we don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables because our grocery store is closed. And it's kind of ironic that the grocery store and the hospital are directly across the street from each other. And so when I was doing my dissertation 2017, I went back home, and that was kind of the biggest thing that happened, was like trying to figure out, what's really happening to these really small spaces. They were once like, thriving areas, and you could see the history in some of the buildings and, the stories that people tell, but none of that is what we can experience now. Those are just, memories that our parents share or grandparents have. So just a couple of the big things that are happening right now, just lack of economic drivers and grocery stores, availability of food, pretty much a food desert. And also just thinking about no access to health care. And we know public health, those are big components of people's health. So.
Oh, definitely. Well, and what's interesting is that you talk about grocery store, hospitals, and post offices are usually, large markers of a community, of the strength of a community. And when those things start to close, they usually signal, it seems as though, the failing of communities. Those are usually things that go first. So you have taken a look at some of the problems that are in Lambert and listened to some of the individuals there. And it's my understanding that you are hosting an event in Lambert coming up in the month of March.
Yes.
And so it sounds like a wonderful event, very exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So the event is called Herself. I created this company called Herself too, probably like 2 weeks ago, realistically. It came on the heels of just kind of wanting to do something with my friends. When I was thinking about, having like a vision board party, it was the first of the year. People are trying to get their goals together and figure out, how they want to make changes over this coming year. And so in my attempt to get all my friends together to hang out, I really started thinking about what would be the best place to host it. So I live in Meridian now. Most of my friends that, are college friends and friends from high school still live closer to home, and most of them live either in the Horn Lake area or Batesville, and that's about 3.5 hours away from where I am. And I got married last year, so I felt like I didn't want to require them to come back to my house for another kind of party and all this stuff, so I wanted to do something that was closer to them. And, as I was trying to figure out how to go about doing this, I really started to think about the women that were in my community who don't often get together for these types of things, who don't, go to brunch, when they go out of town. They don't get a chance to go to all these conferences that our jobs really pay for sometimes. So I thought, it would be a disservice for me to be selfish and think of only my friends, but really start to think about what kind of impact could I have on a broader community of women that, grew up in the same space that I grew up in. And so Herself was created with that in mind. Really wanted to focus on self-care in addition to, really just thinking about women's wellness overall. So a lot of the friends that I was going to connect with are nurses, pharmacists, and my aunt's OBGYN. So there was this really strong healthcare component, like all of us have gone our separate ways, but we've remained close and we've often gone into the same type of career field. And so what better way than for us to connect, and share and have fun together and also give back to our community by, providing the resources and being there to answer people's questions about health and really just, focusing on how we can rebuild our community. When I was going back to it, I think a lot of times the Delta leads with the poverty narrative, and we don't often talk about the positive things that we do in our community or how strong our faith is. And so I wanted to really change that and start to lead with positivity instead of poverty. And this event itself is one of my very first. I haven't done anything like this before. I've always been the one that kind of had the idea, but don't really want to take the lead on it. But this has forced me to put my name, on something and really, really try to figure out how I can create a legacy for my work in public health and also give back to my community.
Well, it sounds like an amazing event and that the women in Lambert will be very happy that you've taken on this project. So what are some of the specific events that will go on during the event?
So primarily, the event is March 9th in Lambert, Mississippi. It's going to be from 10 to 4 p.m. So between that time, we're really looking at hosting a mini conference that, of course, involves brunch. So really good food. I'm excited about the food. We're going to offer vegan options and vegetarian options as well, introduce people to how you can eat healthy and, provide a healthy lunch for them. The biggest pieces of it focus on financial wellness. And so we have a speaker that will talk about, how you can repair your credit, how your financial wellness is linked to your overall health. We also have a healthcare panel that features some of the women who were born and raised in the community. So as I mentioned, my aunt, she's coming back to share. She's an OBGYN, so what better way than to have somebody that grew up in that particular community that is able to really answer your questions. A couple of friends are a chiropractor that grew up in the same area, and pharmacists and a health educator. So those pretty much round out our healthcare panel. And one of the biggest things I really wanted to talk about was how we maintain self-care and how we incorporate self-care into our daily routines. And where I grew up, we don't often have access to a gym. So, if you're in a city, it's really easy for you to just go get a gym membership and go to Whole Foods or have all these other options. So I really wanted to be able to create opportunities for women to live well with the resources that they have. That's really what the focus of it is. And then at the end of the day, we have two other speakers who will talk about goal setting. Another speaker is a marriage and family therapist. So we're really looking at holistically the health of women and how we can kind of pinpoint areas. And so maybe in the future, we'll have one-off events that really focus on just one or two things and not, try to tackle the whole thing. So, and then before I forget, we're hosting a pop-up market, which will feature local entrepreneurs and small business owners. And I'm really excited about that. We have a couple of people coming who are, travel agents. We have people who create jewelry, folks who have their own t-shirt lines, who are, coming back in the area to highlight their brands and to build up clients. And so I'm really excited about that opportunity. Because we don't have as many resources, we're forced to figure out what our creative niche is. And so a lot of times, people start second businesses out of necessity, not really because that's really just something that they often want to do.
Our side hustle.
Yeah, the side hustle muscle, that's what I call it. But yeah, that's pretty much where people are. I have my sister does hair. She's the one that did my braids that you mentioned earlier. And so really just giving them a space to come together, showcase the products that they create, for us to really appreciate our talent that we actually have, in our area, and also, to purchase from them and help them generate wealth. Because that's one of the things that we don't often do in the Black community is keep, our money circulating within our own community.
That's right. Well, one of the things that you mentioned when we talked about your event was that so often women in the Delta, in order to experience something like this, we have to go to Jackson or
Right.
Memphis. And so I applaud you for wanting to do something in a small town and a small venue so that the women that live there can experience it.
Mm-hmm.
A great T-shirt would be what you said, live well with the resources that you have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that we forget that we think that we have to be in some larger place in order to improve our lives, for our lives to be better, when really we have to learn to live with what we have.
Exactly. And this is really the whole premise of it. Because I work at a university, I'm an instructor, a lot of times I have access to conferences all the time. And because I live in Meridian, I can get on, 20 and be in Jackson in an hour and go to, some type of event for entrepreneurs or a brunch or just, hang out. But thinking of where I grew up, we would often load on buses to go to museums. We would get on the bus to go to the zoo, never really thinking about how we could, establish our own within our community. And so this event really is focused on bringing all the resources directly to the women in the space that they live, where they work, where they play, where they worship, and not really forcing them to get outside of that. It takes time to take off work to go somewhere to Jackson
and money.
Yeah, and so you have to plan to do those things, but to really be able to come to Lambert, if you stay in the northern end of the county, at most it may be like 30 minutes away, but it's not like you're going to have to spend the whole day, get a hotel in Jackson and stay overnight and all those types of things, but you'll be able to come and go, right back home and be, filled. And so I hope that the day is very fulfilling for the women who are local, who can start to see how they can improve their lives where they are. A lot of times in church, we often say, bloom where you're planted. So I'm planting this seed in my community and hoping that women will start to sow their own seeds and that those things will prosper. And collectively, we can bring our community back up to positivity instead of poverty.
I mean, this is truly a public health project because exactly what you said, we know that social determinants of health are those things that impact us where we live, work, and where we play.
Right.
And so the fact that you're doing this in the community really will go to the heart of how we try and help people in public health. So is there a cost to attend?
So the tickets are $20 for attendance. And if you want to vend, get a booth and be able to sell your products, it's $30. So I'm not looking to, make money off of this. I'm not, wanting to get rich, but the money that we generate will help pay for the food, also be able to provide the resources that we're going to give out. We generated a reading list, so we want to be able to, get some of those materials. We've also gotten, a couple workbooks and things that we want to produce. And also we want to be able to provide a little token of appreciation for our speakers who are coming in there. Most of the speakers, but all of them are actually coming for free because this is something that has been placed on their heart to do. They want to give back, and because they are from the community as well. A lot of people that I talked to were saying to me like they've been wanting to do something, but they didn't necessarily know how to go about doing it, or they've been gone for so long that they may feel disconnected. This event and initiative has created a platform for people who want to reconnect with the community and, provide the resources that they have. And so I'm excited about that just being an opportunity in itself, no matter what may come of the event, but just giving people the opportunity to give back and to reconnect in the way that they feel is, best fit for them.
Well, and Dr. White, I want to applaud you again, because to do this, requires an investment of your time and your money as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you're taking this project on. I want to remind the audience that the event is going to be March 9th, 2019 from 10 to 4 p.m. And where will it be?
It will be at 723 Riverside Avenue in Lambert, Mississippi, and the zip code is 38643. And so the building itself is my church's Family Life Center. And so we have plenty of space. We're looking to have an awesome time. We'll have great food, also have some giveaways, and just be able to fellowship and create a space for sisterhood.
And if anyone has any specific questions, they could give you a call. Is there a number where they can reach you? Or
Yeah, and so you can find us on the web, on our website. It's called Herself2, so herselftoo.com. We're also on Facebook at Herself. We're on Instagram at Herself2. And if you have questions, you can also email me. So my email address is herselflove@gmail.com. Or you can give me a call at 601-483-8021.
All right. Well, Dr. White, I'm so glad that you joined us today on the podcast. I know that you'll be back again to talk about so many of the issues that are facing the Mississippi Delta. And again, we appreciate you for putting on this event for the community.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hey, there are thousands of podcasts out there, and you could be listening to any one of them at this moment, but you're here with me, and for that, I say thank you. My name is Daphne Robinson, and I am Mississippi-born, Delta-raised.
This podcast is sponsored by the Center for Public Health and Justice. The Center for Public Health and Justice is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Its mission is to improve the public health and safety of communities in the Mississippi Delta. To learn more about our services, visit thecenterforpublichealthandjustice.org. This podcast has been a Deuce Vision production.